Throughout history, warfare has been perceived predominantly as a male domain. Yet, this perception overlooks the profound and often underrepresented roles that women have played on and off the battlefield. From the earliest empires to modern conflicts, women have contributed not just as healers and caretakers, but increasingly as combatants, strategists, and military leaders. This video aims to explore the deep and complex history of women in war, moving beyond simplistic narratives and examining the transformation of their roles from nurses to soldiers and far beyond. In ancient warfare, women were rarely permitted to formally participate in combat, yet their roles were far from insignificant. In civilizations such as ancient Mesopotamia and Egypt, women were involved in logistical support, maintaining supplies and morale. Occasionally, extraordinary figures broke through societal barriers, most famously Queen Tomyris of the Massagetae, who led her forces to victory against the Persian Emperor Cyrus the Great in the 6th century before the Common Era. In ancient Greece, while women were excluded from formal military service, the mythological figure of the Amazon warrior represented an enduring cultural archetype of female martial power. Similarly, in ancient Rome, women frequently accompanied legions as camp followers, providing food, medical care, and sometimes intelligence, though they were not officially recognized as part of the military apparatus. During the medieval period, noblewomen in Europe occasionally assumed military leadership in their husband's absence. Joan of Arc remains the most iconic example, a peasant girl who claimed divine guidance and led French troops to critical victories during the 100 Years' War. In Eastern Europe and Central Asia, women warriors such as the Polish noblewoman Amelia Plater and the female fighters of the Mongol armies challenged gender norms more openly. In feudal Japan, the Onibugeisha were female samurai who trained in martial arts and sometimes fought in battles to defend their clans. While these examples were exceptional, they were not isolated. Across continents, women continued to provide essential support in war, often blurring the lines between civilian and combatant roles, especially in times of crisis or invasion. As European empires expanded, the 19th century saw women's wartime roles institutionalized, particularly in the field of medicine. The Crimean War became a turning point, with Florence Nightingale revolutionizing battlefield nursing and sanitation. Her work not only saved lives, but also laid the foundation for modern military nursing. Meanwhile, women across imperial domains such as Indian Rani Lakshmibai, who led troops against British forces during the Indian Rebellion of 1857, demonstrated that female resistance to imperialism was both symbolic and material. In the American Civil War, women like Clara Barton and Harriet Tubman played multifaceted roles. Barton as a nurse who later founded the American Red Cross, and Tubman as a scout, spy, and guerrilla leader for the Union Army. This period marked a shift from informal participation toward more organized, semi-official roles for women in war. The First World War marked a massive transformation in women's involvement in warfare. While formal combat roles remained largely closed to them, women entered military-adjacent services in unprecedented numbers. They served as nurses close to the front lines, enduring shellfire and disease in casualty clearing stations and field hospitals. Organizations such as the Voluntary Aid Detachment in Britain and the American Red Cross enabled thousands of women to contribute directly to the war effort. Additionally, women filled industrial roles in munitions factories, producing the very weapons used in combat, a vital part of the so-called home front in Russia. The temporary collapse of the monarchy and subsequent revolution led to the formation of the Women's Battalion of Death, organized by Maria Bokareva. This unit, though short-lived, proved women's capacity for discipline and bravery under fire and directly participated in trench warfare. The Second World War significantly expanded the horizons of women's military service. Many countries created formal auxiliary units, such as the Women as Army Corps in the United States and the Auxiliary Territorial Service in Britain. These women operated as drivers, mechanics, radio operators, and anti-aircraft gunners, often placing them in direct danger. In the Soviet Union, the ideological emphasis on equality led to even more radical integration. Soviet women served not only as medics and snipers like the highly decorated Lyudmila Pavlichenko, but also as pilots in the feared Night Witches bomber regiment. These examples prove that women were not only capable of enduring the horrors of war, but could excel in combat roles when permitted. Despite this, post-war demobilization often forced women back into traditional domestic roles, creating tensions that would later fuel feminist and civil rights movements. In the decades following the Second World War, progress for women in the military slowed, constrained by both cultural norms and institutional resistance. However, the Cold War period was not devoid of advancement. Women continued to serve in supporting roles within NATO and Warsaw Pact countries, and several newly independent nations in Africa and Asia incorporated female fighters into their liberation movements. In Vietnam, the Viet Cong deployed women as guerrillas, spies, and logistical operatives. Similarly, in Algeria and Angola, women's participation in revolutionary warfare highlighted both their dedication and the ideological framing of gender equality. While these gains were often reversed after independence, they laid the groundwork for future recognition of women as legitimate participants in national defense. Since the late 20th century, the global integration of women into armed forces has accelerated, though not without controversy. In 1989, the Canadian military officially opened all combat roles to women, including submarine service and special operations. The United States followed suit in stages, culminating in the 2015 decision to lift all gender-based restrictions on military occupations. Israel has long been known for integrating women into its armed forces, although debates about their deployment in front-line roles continue. Today, women serve not only in combat, but also in senior command positions, intelligence, cyber warfare, and peacekeeping missions. The inclusion of women in modern warfare is not merely a matter of policy, but reflects deeper shifts in societal attitudes about gender, citizenship, and security. The history of women in war is not a linear story of progress, but rather one of cycles of visibility and erasure, of participation and restriction. From ancient queens and medieval warriors to modern combatants and strategists, women have long been part of the martial sphere, even when historical narratives failed to acknowledge them. Today, as armed forces around the world reconsider the nature of warfare in the digital and asymmetric age, the roles of women are once again being reshaped. Recognizing and preserving the history of their contributions is not only a matter of justice, but essential to understanding the full scope of human conflict and resilience.